My third story is about socialism, AOC. AOC versus Fox News, and they are talking about socialism, and they're bringing up generational gaps here, and I think this is important. I'm not going to play the entire video, but I want you to hear what they get wrong about young people in this country, especially when it comes to socialism and capitalism. So here we go.
Welcome back to the Big Saturday Show. Capitalism, the bedrock of the American economy for centuries. But apparently, the pursuit of prosperity isn't good enough for one AOC, the outspoken progressive congresswoman pushing back against said capitalism.
To me, capitalism at its core, what we're talking about when we talk about that is the absolute pursuit of profit at all human, environmental, and social cost. That is what we're really discussing. They dictate and can capture governments. That is not a redeemable system for us.
Well, I'm old enough to remember Sean Duffy, and it was AOC, and she was doing, I want to say it was an interview with Margaret Hoover, and it was on PBS. And Hoover asked her, hey, can you give President Trump some credit for the fact that the unemployment rate is somewhere, around 4%? And she said, well, the reason why the unemployment rate is so low is because people are working 2 jobs. And when you're working 2 jobs, and that's not how unemployment works, right? It's not like, oh, if I have 3 jobs, I could really lower the unemployment rate. It's per person, but we all know that. Anyway, let me read you some of these stats here, Sean. As far as a favorable opinion of capitalism versus socialism, okay? And this is capitalism in this case. Gen Z, we can't even get a majority having a favorable opinion of capitalism. Millennials, it's split, it's even, 50%. Gen X, that's me, 58%. That's you, Sean, as well. Boomers, 63%, and then silent, leading the way at 77%.
And this is where I want to jump in. And I want to give a shout out to Case Study QB for this clip, always clipping great content. I want to ask you guys, why is it that way? Why is it that those groups, Gen Z and millennials, have a less favorable opinion of capitalism? What happened to those two groups? I'm a millennial, so I can tell you what happened with me. It was the 08 housing crisis. 08 housing crisis. What happened to Gen Z? You guys see what's happening? What are we going through right now? We've been dealing with the pandemic for 2 years. Yes, Jared, they don't own property. Yes. Do you guys see it? So if you look at silent generation, 77% have a favorable opinion. Boomers, 63%. That makes sense. They didn't have to go through, do you know what it was like for those of us that had to enter the workforce in 08? It was horrible. So a lot of us in these two groups, millennial and Gen Z, we graduate with student loan debt. We're more likely to have it. And we're having a harder time paying it off because the jobs that are available to us are not paying us the wages that we should have gotten had we been a part of the boomer or even the silent generation. We're not getting those wages. Wages did not adjust for inflation, not for us. It didn't. So, and then to go along with that, you had a housing crash. And now you have the pandemic. So it's not surprising to me that those two groups would have a less favorable opinion of capitalism. And I've told you guys this before. A lot of my students, when I worked in higher ed, a lot of my students were Gen Z. And a lot of my students embrace socialism more. I'm going to go back into the video. Wait till you hear what they say about us, though. Wait till you hear what they say about us.
That more than 3/4. So what do you think is driving younger people to embrace socialism more?
Well, the same thing that would let AOC say something that is so stupid. She actually studied economics at BU. We have a failed education system in America that is teaching this garbage.
So that's a little bit misleading. I actually worked at BU until last month, actually. And I want to clarify that. Now, Sean Duffy I know him from MTV's The Real World, Boston, the Boston season. He was on The Real World. Later on, he became a politician. But he says, well, AOC majored in economics. We have a failed education system. The major that AOC had was called International Relations and Economics. It's one long title, but the way that he explains it, he makes it seem like she majored in economics. Economics is a separate degree. It is in a different school at BU. It's not in the same school as International Relations and Economics. So I just want to clarify that. See why you should listen to me? See why it's important to listen to people who've worked at some of these places that they're talking about?
To young people, making them believe that Marxism or socialism is actually better than capitalism. Capitalism, American-style capitalism, has brought more people out of poverty and into the middle class, brought more wealth and generosity and freedom to the world than any other system known to man. And I think
no, Sean. If capitalism has brought more people out of poverty, why do we still have high poverty rates in this country? Why do we still have so many people who are unhoused? Why do we have so many people that have debt? Why do we have all these kids, all these young people who can't buy homes? They don't have money to put a down payment on a home. Why do we have all these people that can't pay off their student loans? Why do we have so many people that have medical debt? Who did it bring out of poverty, Sean? Capitalism mainly works for people who were already in a position to do well financially to begin with. Now, yes, there are some people who do happen to, as they say, pull themselves up by their bootstraps, but they are not the norm. Most people had some help. Most people came from a family that was already well off financially, so they didn't have to work as hard. But if you are poor, you are born poor, and you are trying to make it in this country, and you are trying to become middle class or upper middle class or even wealthy, it is twice as hard for you to even get out of poverty, to even get on the path to that point. So no, Sean, capitalism is not working out. That's why we're in this situation to begin with. That's why we have so many people who can barely make enough money to pay their rent. We don't have rent control in a lot of cities anymore. I know Boston got rid of it back in the 90s. So you have these astronomical rents, but you have all these kids that in order to get these jobs that are going to pay them some of anything, they have to move to those cities that have those astronomical rents. Let's be real. You don't see Google and Facebook setting up shop in rural America. You see them setting up shop on the West Coast, the East Coast, right here, Boston, New York. You see them setting up shop where there's larger cities. They usually are concentrated in the areas that have those academic institutions that are putting out those degrees where they can employ those people. I said this before. You notice you don't see like a Google or like a Facebook in middle of America. No, you see them in these expensive academic elite cities.
what's happening here is AOC knows that she's not going to be, some rich entrepreneur. But if she believes in Marxism and socialism and can implement that in America, that gives her power to actually spend other people's money. It's all about her control, not disseminating power to the people in America to make decisions for themselves.
Jeez, I felt like I was listening to the next John F. Kennedy there. You should run for office, Duffy. I think you'd have a shot.
I'm
all right?
done.
I think you got a future in that
Joe.
business. You should be. This is so much more fun. Let me go to Miss Bruce here. Tammy, another poll to share, and this is even more disturbing. Okay, would you be somewhat or extremely likely to vote for a socialist candidate? Rutrow, Generation Z has it at 64%, so basically 2/3. Millennials, you go all the way up to 7 in 10 would be extremely likely or somewhat likely to vote for a socialist candidate. Generation X, yeah, we still continue to represent fairly sanely at 44% on that one. Boomers, only about 1/3, and silent as well. So,
but again, why is that? Why is Gen Z 64% more likely to vote for a socialist candidate? Notice millennials, we have the highest percentage, 70%. Why is that? Again, what happened to us in our lifetime that would push us further towards socialism? The economy. We can't buy things. We can't own anything. You can't really start a life, a future for yourself. We're not paid enough that we should be paid. We're not given enough to really get ahead. We're given enough to get by. We also are more likely to have higher student loan debt. So instead of explaining that, what he's going to do is he's going to go in and criticize those groups. Watch this.
Oh, is it a matter of younger people simply just like to be taken care of, Tammy, and therefore socialism is supposed to be the answer to that? Like, hey, forgive my student loans. Hey, give me a job automatically. Hey, I want 7 weeks off from work. Is that the thinking here?
I don't think there's much thinking. That's it. This is about.
You guys hear this? You hear this? Basically, they're saying we're lazy. He basically just said that we're lazy. She's saying that we're dumb. You hear these talking points? Here's an idea. Instead of having the people on the panel that you have on, why don't you bring on millennials and Gen Z? I did a panel for that. I did 2 panels. I did a millennial panel and I did a Gen Z panel over on RBN. Why don't you bring on those people? Huh? Why? Why don't you go talk to people from those groups instead of talking to a bunch of people? Nobody on that panel is Gen Z or millennial. What are you asking them for?
About what they might, it's what they might see on TikTok. It's 2 lines that Bernie Sanders might say, who never gets any critical coverage because the media thinks he doesn't matter, but I think he may be running the country right now. So it is about wish fantasies. It's about belonging to the club. When I was younger, I was on the left, and there's a reason, because Americans want things to be better for everyone. And when you're lied to by educators, when your mentors are making things up, with what we saw with the last election, it's easy for young people to think, oh, well, things could be better, but they really don't know. They really don't know what capitalism really is. They don't know what socialism genuinely represents, because, as Sean mentioned, the education system deliberately has kept history from being taught. Look, you can get into a UC campus now in California with no history classes in your high school background.
But wait a minute though. No history has been taught. Don't you guys want to get rid of critical race theory? Don't you guys want history, certain things to be pulled from our history? Now you're complaining that history isn't taught? History was taught to me. It was taught to my friends, a lot of people, a lot of my colleagues. What are you talking about? So which is it?
So they have an interest. But AOC and people who are socialists who know what's going on, the left relies on victimhood. They rely on pain. They rely on suffering. They rely on fear. They rely on a population that's in retreat. Capitalism frees people. It makes people enthusiastic to participate. And of course, that's the problem with capitalism. It allows the rubes like us to be able to have a voice.
Did that make any sense to you guys, what she just said? She said, well, that's the thing with the left. They rely on fear. Guys, you do this. Look, they do the same thing. I just told you guys earlier, mainstream media, this is what they do. They try to fearmonger people. Don't you use the same fear tactics to scare people out of wanting to embrace socialism? Don't you also use fear? CNN, MSNBC, they're supposed to be the liberal channels. They do the same thing. They use fear to scare people out of socialism. A lot of the ways that I've heard socialism discussed on these networks, it's not even correct. They just automatically assume, oh, they want us to be like Venezuela. They want us to be like that. Go look at Venezuela. Go live there if you want to have socialism then. They're the ones who spread misinformation. They're the ones who spread propaganda, and they're the ones that instill fear in people. And this is why I tell you sometimes to turn the TV off. The media is one of the most dangerous tools that we have. And if you don't seek out other information, it is really easy to sit back and believe everything that they spill at you across these networks.
And Alicia, well said, by the way, Tammy. I was looking before, I got caught looking. AOC has a Twitter followage of, if that's a word, 12.8 million people. Okay, that is a big following. It's the biggest in Congress. Here's my quick question for you in 30 seconds. Does she actually have influence, you think, on young people, or is that just a social media mirage?
It probably is a little bit of both. I think she probably does have some influence and gets other people to retweet and do the Twitter thing, and then try and have very, very serious and important conversations over their coffees. But it's really easy, I think, to admire socialism when you live in a capitalist country and have all the benefits of it. And I think that's what's being forgotten here. And just real quickly, I just have to give a shout out to Gen X, because we just chill in the middle of these polls. We're just going to work, not making a whole lot of noise. That's all we want to do. That's all.
Can I say, Joe?
A little more too.
Joe, can I say really quickly?
Yeah,
she had no influence on the last election here in New York. Some people that she campaigned for failed, in one case in Buffalo, to a write-in candidate. So I think the answer is, with boots on the ground, not much.
But why did those people fail? They don't tell you why. And I'm assuming she's referring to India Walton. The reason why India Walton's campaign fizzled is because she started to move closer to the center. Chuck Schumer came down to endorse her. No, you need to stay like to the left. Now, she was supposed to be a socialist. I think she's a democratic socialist. But once she started to change her message, started to pull back, that's what caused her to lose. Now, yes, we knew the other candidate was going to have more money. But when you get an endorsement for Chuck Schumer and you say you're a democratic socialist, I don't think that was the reason why those people lost. Now, I'm not here to support AOC. I think AOC has a lot of issues. I don't think she's fought for the things that she said she was going to fight for. I don't think that she is a good legislator. I don't think she's doing a good job. And I'll just be honest about that. I don't really think that AOC is a socialist. Now, she calls herself a democratic socialist, but democratic socialist isn't really a socialist. But it is what it is. But I don't understand how people can listen to these talking points and not look further into it and just believe this garbage. They're telling you these things, but they're not telling you why they're happening. Explain to the people why those people lost. Those people didn't lose because AOC showed up. Those people lost because they believed that old politician playbook that in order for you to win, you need to move a little bit further to the moderate lane. It didn't work. It didn't work for India Walton. It didn't work for Nina Turner. They believe that if they went out and talked about these things like Medicare for all, no, don't do that because that's going to scare away the moderate voters. And I've said this before and I said it again. I think that is a big mistake. If you are a left candidate, if you are a third party candidate and you say, you're on the left regardless, if you are supposed to be the leftist candidate, you need to run on those issues. You need to push those issues and press those issues. People didn't go out and vote for Bernie Sanders in the primary and didn't, come to Bernie's rallies because Bernie Sanders was like, yeah, I'm going to be a little bit more moderate and move closer to the center. People came out because he was to the left. And granted, I think he was still a compromise even for like someone like me. He was more to the left and he was pushing policies that people really need in this country. A lot of young people, a lot of poor working class people need in this country, not because he was trying to be more moderate. And I can say this over and over again until it makes my head spin. But these political candidates will continue to do it. They will tone down their message. They will make it more subdued. They will take the fire and the passion and the energy out of their campaign because their campaign advisors tell them to. That is a mistake. I think that was a big mistake for Nina Turner to do that. I think that is really why she lost, not just because of big money. And I think that's something that needs to be said. And I'm going to show you what that looks like. Give me just a second. Okay, so I'm going to show you. Where's my Twitter? I'm going to show you the difference. Videos. Let's see if I can find it. I don't know where it was. Give me just a second. Because Nina Turner is running again. Oh, I found it. All right. So watch this, you guys. So again, I'm really big on passion and fire. And I'm not seeing that. I felt like this was toned down. So listen to this. Watch this ad. When I first saw this ad, I was like, that doesn't sound like the Nina Turner I knew. So check this out.
America is at a crossroads, wrestling between two futures. Do we sacrifice the poor, the working poor, and the barely middle class to protect the ultra wealthy? Or do we treat our people as America's greatest asset and ensure everyone has a real chance to live a good life? Families are struggling with higher gas and food prices, stagnant wages, and shrinking benefits, while corporations make record profits. These are unprecedented times. Our leaders can't settle for just enough. They must fight for what we deserve. I'm Nina Turner, and I'm running for Congress because we deserve a voice for change in Washington. A leader who is on the side of the people, not out for the powerful or out for themselves. A leader who understands that healthcare has been denied to millions of Americans for far too long and will fight for Medicare for all. A leader who knows poverty is a policy choice and the minimum wage must be raised to a living wage. Who won't take a dime from special interest PACs or do their bidding. You deserve a leader who is from here, who knows what it's like to grow up and live their life in this community, who has stood up for reproductive justice and served on the front lines of the fight for criminal justice reform and voting rights, not for days, but for decades. A member of Congress that stands shoulder to shoulder with leaders like Bernie Sanders, unapologetically to fight for working people and speak truth to power. And here's the truth. Greater Cleveland needs a change maker, not someone who just go along to get along. We can put an agenda through Congress that puts working families first, and that's worth fighting for. Something you can feel. Good union jobs, expanded health care, child care, and climate justice. Winning the battle against Republicans and the holdouts in our party will only happen when we put it all on the line for everyday people. An America as good as its promise is worth fighting for. Our children are worth fighting for. Our future is worth fighting for.
Did you feel inspired by that? Did you feel that fire and that passion? That just came across really toned down. It just seems so moderate. It feels watered down. Where's the passion? Where's the fire? This is what happens. We all know Nina Turner doesn't speak like that. Come on. Now I'm going to show you the difference. I'm going to show you a comparison. And I'm going to show you the ad. Now, I showed this when this ad came out. I showed this ad to so many people. And a friend of mine was actually going to vote for Elizabeth Warren. This was 2020 primary. She was all set to vote for Warren. And I showed her this ad. And after I showed her this ad, she changed her mind. She changed her mind. That's the power of this ad. Some of you may remember this. I'm going to share my screen. Some of you may have seen this, some of you may have not. I'm going to show you the difference between a powerful ad and that ad that you just saw.
I just want to say one of my favorite writers growing up was a man named James Baldwin. And I remember Baldwin saying, you ask my father to wait, my brother to wait, my uncle to wait. How long must I wait on freedom? How long must I wait on rights and equality and liberty? And as a black child, that resonated with me because I knew I'd been denied and I personalized that. But as I grew, I started to understand poor white people have been denied. Women have been denied. Gays and lesbians, transgender people been denied. Immigrant children been denied. Everybody outside of that 1% has been denied. So I want you to take a few seconds to look to your left and look to your right. Look to your neighbor and say, neighbor, the time is now. There are more of us. We're stronger. We will wait no longer. The time is now. When you go to that booth next year, I need you to carry in that booth the memory of this room. Black, white, straight, gay, men, female. We are together. We are united. Our time is right now. We will not wait 4 more years. We will not wait 20 more years. We will not wait 2 more presidents. We will not wait 3 more presidents. The time is now. The time is not in the future. The time is not some abstract time. The time is not something that might be. The time ain't something that could be. The time ain't nothing that should be, that would be. It ain't tomorrow. It ain't the day after. It ain't coming next week. The time is. Senator Bernard Sanders will be the next president of the United States of America. Thank you all.
Do you see the difference? Now, I believe Matt Orff made that video. But do you see the difference? So that was the video that I showed to a friend of mine who was going to vote for Elizabeth Warren, and she changed her mind the last minute after she saw that video. And she said it was that video that changed her mind, that really pushed her. So the ads that you're seeing right now, no, in comparison, it does not. It just does. It doesn't. That don't move me. That don't inspire me. Now, a lot of this is useless to me now because I told you after the squad, I was like, I'm not voting for a duopoly anymore. Not anymore.